Hello, everyone, and welcome to Osquery Office Hours. It is September 9th, and here in Boston, it's sunny, and we remembered to hit record. So hopefully it's nice wherever you all are. Announcements and highlights since the last meeting. Probably the big one is that we declared 519 stable. So thank you, everyone who contributed to the code and the process on that.
Thank you, Seth, for completing the release process.
I think that's the only announcement I have. I don't know if other people have any announcements. Okay. Well, welcome, Philip. For whatever brings you here, welcome aboard.
Thanks.
So the next section of our agenda is sort of an open section for any questions, issues, PRs people want to discuss. So if you come here with a purpose or something you'd like to ask us, is a great time to bring it up. Or, anyone else from the usual set.
Yeah. So the other day I was talking with somebody over at Fleet Device Management about the Osquery binary. And the item that we're looking at is we use Fleet and Osquery to monitor and gather data from Linux clients, and we've got a group of kernel developers who ask us to scan any binaries that we put onto their systems with a tool that analyzes vulnerabilities, those kinds of things. And there were a handful of detected known vulnerabilities in Osquery D that was included in the packages that we tested. And I wanted to understand what the best way is, or number one, kind of what the process is that y'all go through relating to handling vulnerabilities, and what's recommended for reporting any of that kind of stuff, or checking if a vulnerability has been detected already and noted and marked as not affected, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, great question. And we do have a process for tracking vulnerabilities and documenting which ones we believe should be ignored. Go ahead, Seth.
I was just going to say, right, so predominantly speaking, Osquery is a volunteer project, so there's a lot of things that Fleet is not, of course, and my employer is also not, but Osquery as a project is, so there's always a little bit of tension there. And sort of for other background, a lot of vulnerabilities that, as there's been more pressure on the entire open source ecosystem around scanning, we have generally seen a tremendous number of false positives. What usually happens is there'll be some library that under some conditions has some kind of, out of bounds read, which, because it's an out of bounds read that could conceivably be remotely triggered in that one library, suddenly it's like a CVE 10 most urgent. Whereas like every project that uses is like, we don't use that library.
We don't use that.
Whatevs, right? So we've seen a lot of that in Osquery over the years, just as background, right? Black Duck was one that would generally flag as like, hey, you have this library that has once had a CVE in it. And we're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, and we went through all of the results and checked, okay, is this library version actually that version in Osquery? And we found that some of them, the detection was completely wrong. It had the wrong version, wasn't doing that correctly. But there was one.
No, there's all that's background.
Yeah.
So Osquery is statically built predominantly, right? So most of the libraries are hard-coded in, and we do have some automation that runs and compares the library versions we have to the known CVEs that are out there. And you can see this by two ways. One of them is you can look at the GitHub issues for things that have been opened or closed with probably the CVE tag on them, right? So you can see if there's an open issue or if there's a closed issue. If there's a closed issue, then, well, you could probably look at why it was closed, right? So you can trace that. If there's an open issue, it probably means that no one has triaged it yet, right? And the reality of the volunteer project means that probably no one has triaged it, even if it's a month or two old. The link Zach sent is where we record exceptions, so that's part of the automation tooling. So if it's a link, so that file there includes the list of ignored CVEs. So
I thought that was the list of dependencies that are
both.
included.
It is both. Yes, so that is the dependencies, and then for each of those, any CVEs that we've explicitly chosen to ignore. And so if you were to look at like the git edit history of that file, should I share my screen, or does this all make sense to you?
This makes sense. I had looked through that file extensively, and that's how we discovered some of the versions were incorrect that our tool had detected, and how the one that does appear to still be listed is the libarchive one that y'all are right. There's a bunch of issues in the Osquery GitHub for that one. So.
And that's which CVE is that specifically? libarchive, the 2025 5915. I see. There's like four of them that were published next to each other.
5. Which one is it?
5915, 5916.
It's probably 3277.
The SQLite one?
No, it's 5914. Sorry. There we go.
Which okay.
Is interesting. In the issue, it's listed as low. In the other one, it's listed as, in the scan, it's listed as critical.
And then
the discussion was it's not used.
Right. The discussion, where are you referring to the discussion? That would be the discussion within the issue in Osquery.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because I see it's an RAR format thing, and if I remember, we use libarchive for deb packages or something. I feel like Stefano, I see you unmuting.
For the carver.
Oh, for the carver. Right. We make
our
archives with the carver.
Yeah.
So it's not used, but I guess the fact that the issue is open still means that we haven't sort of completed our process.
What issue are we talking about?
8634. I pasted it into the chat.
Oh, I see it now. Thank you.
Well, I should say, I mean, all the CVs in there, there are like 5 for libarchive, a couple, I think, for SQLite, etc. Yeah, all of those still need some triaging, I think. Well, given that they are open.
Are there so we recently got the CLA in place, I believe, to contribute and participate in more development. I'll look through. I haven't had a chance to look through contributing guidelines. Is there anything unique to contributing for CVEs that y'all want that might not be covered in the current contributing document? We have another developer that did read through them already.
I don't think so. And I would look at the commit history for that third party manifest JSON file. Okay. And you'll see that, the last 10 commits or so in there are from Stefano, who's on the call here, from Steph, who's on the call here, from Constantine, who's an engineer at Fleet, and a few from a community member, Le Sui, Le Suisse, don't speak
Yeah.
French, who has been upgrading some libraries and editing that file as well. So you can sort of get a sense for, there's a mix of, the PRs from Stefano are often like setting ignores for CVEs, and some of the other ones are for actually upgrading libraries. So you can see sort of a mix of what people have done recently, but it's all pretty straightforward, I would say.
I want to note that upgrading libraries is not straightforward.
Depends. It can be.
Just it's a different process.
Lots of files included into the repo. I think I saw a bunch of submodules.
There are
and pumping those
submodules,
and then testing everything.
Yeah, the testing can be non-trivial for sure, and the submodules, the diffs end up looking pretty simple because if we don't have to make like code changes to support it. So yeah, if you look at the recent ones, some of them are only just a few lines, and others are more.
Yeah,
much more.
But maybe a question, right, is if what you're looking for is to analyze and determine that the CVE isn't applicable, that's quite straightforward, assuming you can successfully analyze the utilization of the library, which is sometimes easier or harder.
Yeah, and on most of them, we did find the issues. I think that was the only one that the issue was still open. And I wanted, but before I just chimed in and was like, hey, what's the status on this one? I wanted to join this and understand, kind of more about what we can do to help as well. Because we like to collaborate and upstream items where we can.
I love to hear that. Welcome.
Awesome. Yeah. And libarchive is probably not a very hard one to do, I'm guessing. Again, caveats abound, but I think that libarchive, because it's not used super widely, and historically, if you look at, there was already one PR this year to upgrade libarchive, and it was pretty straightforward. So that's another one where it's like we can mark the CVEs as not applicable and ignore. We also might not be that hard to just upgrade it.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like Leslie has an open PR for bumping 379 to 381, but there's not been anything else on it. So I'll take a look at what is in there. If there's anything that failed, obviously.
Oh yeah, okay.
Windows.
So that, and there was a failure on Windows, right? So I think that we have to look into what the issue is there. Oh, the job was canceled. Oh, interesting. I'm just gonna kick these off because there might not actually be an issue at all. It might have just been some weird CI blip.
Okay.
So.
Do you have other questions about either process or how things work or anything, Philip?
No, we've spent quite a bit of time looking at different pieces of Osquery. We've got several contributors who have been working on some stuff. I think there was an issue posted by one of my peers a little bit ago. I was going to try and find his, but we were waiting on the CLA. We had to go through all the approval process for that. So we got that finalized, I think, about a week ago now. So yeah. No, otherwise it's I've known of Osquery for several years. So this is the first real opportunity that I've had to use it and interact on it, and I'm looking forward to learning, especially learning more about the custom tables. I think is the description that's used in the docs, creating custom tables for things that aren't currently queryable. So
as maybe a couple of notes, right? I think, so, to be honest, a lot of the issues are very old. Some of them may or may not be applicable. I think we're not very good at ruthlessly closing the things that obviously we haven't fixed yet.
Same.
just know that,
Yeah, no, you're good.
Office hours is probably the best way to reach a group of core developers quickly. Slack sometimes works, but I think we're also all sometimes not on Slack so much.
Yeah, and Philip, if you're for fleet customers, you can always get to me or others by talking to our support team.
Yeah, we've been in quite a bit of discussions with Zay and Noah and
Awesome.
Lucas recently. So
awesome. That's great.
Yeah. So just these many fleet can do things. Osquery as a project is generally happy to accept things and help people do more. Fleet can sometimes help you with Osquery.
Yeah.
Many ways.
Talking with Lucas is how I learned about the office hours, and he was like, I recommend you join it just to see what the status of that particular one is, because there's an issue and there's a PR and I don't know what's going on with it. So.
Yeah, and thanks for checking in on that, because I think that one probably slipped through the cracks because I probably was just looking at the CIX, but now that we've actually looked at it, it's because of it has nothing to do with the PR itself. It had to do with the deprecation of the Windows 2019 runners on GitHub Actions. So I've now reopened the PR, which is re-triggered CI to now use the new runners, and hopefully it will then just pass, and then this will be ready to merge for the next release. So.
Alrighty.
Also, just to kind of yammer at you, right? You asked about custom tables, and so Osquery supports extensions through a Thrift-based API, and you can register an extension that has tables through that. There are SDKs for Go, Python. I once made a Ruby one. The C one's a little bit weird, but the Python and Go ones are pretty straightforward.
Go works really well because you can cross compile binaries, and so make it really easy to deploy. And and as well, if there's functionality that you think is widely useful, getting it, writing it in C++, which can be annoying, but can also be done. And then getting it into Osquery Core is awesome. And if it's not appropriate for Osquery Core for whatever reason, we also accept contributions in Fleet D where the tables will be written in Go. And then, people on the Fleet team are familiar with writing extensions and deploying extensions as well, if it's something that's really just specific to your organization.
Yeah.
So lots of options.
So that does generate one question for me. Because different projects prefer different languages, it sounded like Osquery prefers C++ and
let me rewind.
Go.
So Osquery is written in C++. So if you were going to contribute a table into Osquery Core, like into the Osquery shipping binary, it would have to be in C++, C, Swift, or Objective. Excuse me, not Swift.
No,
not Swift.
Objective-C.
Yeah. The other Mac OS thing.
It's basically Steph's right. It's just a technical constraint. Like our build system does C, C++, and Objective-C++.
Well, and Osquery as a project does not ship any extensions. So if it's in the Osquery binary, it has to be in the C family.
Yeah. So if we think that something would be beneficial to be added to Osquery Core, do you recommend submitting an issue or proposal or something in some way that describes what we're looking to do before we actually start to do a bunch of coding? Because since it is two completely different languages.
I would recommend that because Osquery has some mostly agreed on guidelines on what belongs in core. And I wouldn't want someone to put a lot of effort forth into something that would never be accepted. So it's a little bit on, how do you want to, if you want to be like, hey, I'm thinking that it would be really cool if we had a table that did X, I'm thinking we can get the data through Y. People will either be like, well, that's a line we're not going to cross, or yeah, go for it.
Yeah. And then often if it's like, that's a line we're not going to cross, then maybe it still fits in fleet D or something. And, examples of like lines that we're not going to cross in Osquery core, but that are still like very appropriate for extensions are like Osquery core never shells out to a sub-process to collect data. Whereas it's very common to do that in extensions. And the reasons for that are that we want Osquery core to be like highly, highly performant, and that sub-processing often ends up causing performance issues. Or maybe not often, but it's just a guideline that has been there in Osquery since the beginning. We just don't do it in Osquery core. Whereas, again, it is common to do in extensions.
Okay.
And often unavoidable, right? There's many pieces, like both inside the Collide ecosystem and in the Fleet ecosystem. There's a lot of data that you have to get it through a shell call.
Yeah. And there's lots of great example implementations that we can point you to within the Fleet code base that are open source, that are completely open source, I think, for all the Osquery tables, within the Collide code base, which are partly open source and partly source available, so you can look at the source. Is none of it open source anymore?
No, it's basically all the sources visible, but
the source available in Collide.
Available.
And then there's also like the Mac admins Osquery extension is open source. So there's a lot of code you can look at, and most of it is going to be MIT licensed, at least the Fleet and the Fleet code, and the Mac admins code is going to be MIT licensed, and then the old Collide code is MIT licensed, I think.
True.
But then the new stuff is, I don't know, whatever. Yusef would have to comment on that. But you can at least look at it to understand more about what it looks like to build extension tables.
Yeah, and as said, if you want to tell us what you're thinking, either here in a ticket, we're happy to yammer about it.
Yeah, office hours is a great way to discuss this kind of thing. It only happens every 2 weeks, so if you don't want to wait, I don't usually try to keep up with messages in the general channel in Osquery Slack, but the core channel I try to keep up with. And again, you can always get to me through Fleet support channels.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, I think the one item that we've that has been a question multiple times in our area that we haven't found a good way to pull is TPM info. So I think that's the one area that we're looking at getting more detailed data on via Osquery. I think that's the one that I had found in the past. I wasn't able to find a good way.
So just
on what platform? Windows?
Linux for us.
Linux.
My memory is actually that's a bit of a mess at a platform level.
Yeah, it is. and we're gonna see if we can help with that.
Okay, cool.
Linux is a mess. So I don't. This one might need. There's a couple of Google libraries that might even have Go libraries, or maybe there's like TP. There's a command line tool. Yeah, this one's a fucking mess under the hood.
Yeah.
So this is one that I would say likely because it might include like additional dependencies or shelling out or that kind of thing. Likely, probably more appropriate for an extension. But if there is a good way to do it in Linux without adding new dependencies or shelling out, then I think it would be great to get it into core.
100%. I don't.
Yeah.
If your audio just went weird. Can't hear at all anymore, Seth. It's like noise canceling you or something. Oh, that's awesome. I mean, Philip, if you wanted to like chat strategies more, I'm happy to do that with you.
Okay. Yeah. We're focusing on a couple of other things right now, but that's one of the items that we'll probably look at sometime next year. I want to sync with some internal developers that I know that have quite a bit of experience with TPM and especially in Linux. So
nice. And there is a TPM info table on Windows already.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll help with that one, Seth. The company I work for has all the chops to handle that.
Yeah.
So.
And who was it? I think maybe Constantine at Fleet, or was it Victor? Someone at Fleet was looking into TPM related stuff in Osquery recently. It wasn't a
Yeah, he was doing it
table.
because of us. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
So this is something
he
that I
implemented.
chatted about.
Yeah, he implemented some TPM backed certs for signatures for authentication. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
That's directly because of a request from us.
Okay, awesome.
So yeah, and we were looking at the tables and going, we can't gather as much info as we would like about this from these tables. We might need to improve that.
Okay, got it.
So yeah. Yeah, Mac OS is a tricky one for that because it's not even technically TPM. It's its own beast of secure enclave. So cool.
I assume I can't talk yet, right?
No,
yeah, you're
it's
back.
working
You're
now.
back.
There we go.
Yeah, so you look confused at my comment about macOS.
I'm surprised that all of the Mac OS access to secure enclave is only through user context. I haven't looked at it that deep, but that's weird because
I would love
full
to
disk encryption
discover that I'm wrong.
goes into secure enclave.
Full disk encryption is also operating under Apple's entitlements, whereas Osquery does not have Apple entitlement. So there are Apple entitlements that will grant system-level access into the secure enclave, but everything that I can find for non-Apple entitlements requires user context. So like as a program, if you want to stash something or make a cert or work with a key, it's tied to your user context. So it's like a system level daemon can't do it. There might be a little bit of a carve out for certificates, but it might be deeply tied into the MDM certificate provisioning flows.
That's what I was just thinking.
So it's sort of like, can Osquery use the MDM provided certs? Maybe, but could Osquery use a cert that came by any other path? Is probably not. At least the last time we went digging very deeply in these APIs. And I would absolutely love to know if there are other things I don't know yet.
That sounds familiar to me as well.
It's my new fun little project to play with on the weekends. I'm really curious about that because that seems so weird that Apple would do that. I mean, not really. Apple does weird things all the time related to what they allow other developers to do, but they can do.
It kind of makes sense if you think about, like, Apple has a lot of things that it ties into user context as like a privacy-ish thing or like anti-fingerprinting thing. There's a lot of like things are sandboxed down to a user.
Yeah.
And there's just lots of weird stuff. It makes other things kind of nice, right? If you were using something in the TPM to identify I think a lot of games use this, right? There's a whole little like device attestation thing that goes through the TPMs, and I think is locked to the users as well. It just happens to not be what we want here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Welcome, Constantine. Anyhow, that's probably everything you wanted to know about custom tables.
Yeah, that gives me a good starting point to look at and get an idea of what to do as we start to look at it.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, when I think about developing tables inside Osquery, for me, it's the Osquery extension part is very simple, partly because I've done it so many times, and partly because inside the Clyde code base, there's so much boilerplate now that smooths it out. But then all the harder work is really around how do I get this information? What is the API or system exec? So if you can, like at the deepest level in all the Go code and all the C code, right? There's a generate function that takes the query context, which is going to be like what's in the where clause, and it returns an array of hashes, right? It returns the row data. Yeah. So if you can figure out how to call the APIs from the language you want to work in, there's easy help shimming that into what is that? How do you put that into a table or an extension?
Yeah, it's pretty cool actually. It's really just like a handful of lines of code, and you can be returning boilerplate data, and then you can write anywhere from 1 to thousands of lines of code to actually generate the data you want to return.
Yeah, so I'm a developer by experience, not training, I guess would be the way to describe it. So I've learned a decent amount of Go primarily through looking through Fleet's code. And I know Python pretty well at this point. But C++ is one of those areas I've rarely touched. If I develop something and I find a way to do it in Go, but it's something that turns out that like, hey, Osquery really actually wants to get that into core. Is it just, publish the Go version and let somebody look through it, and then some other community member may convert it to C++ if they choose in the future, or any recommendations on that?
I would say yes, and it's the kind of thing that occasionally I do that kind of work. Certainly Fleet, certainly we prioritize my time sometimes to implement tables within Osquery or within the Fleet extensions based on the needs of Fleet customers. And sometimes that starts with a proof of concept extension table, or it starts with a proof of concept like shell script that someone has that gets the data that they want. So that kind of thing can certainly be done. So if you can get your job done by writing Go in an extension table, that's awesome. And if it goes into the Mac admins extension or the Fleet extension, or you open source it yourself, then it's open source and anyone can use it. So that's awesome. But I do think the best is if it fits, if it makes it into Osquery core. But yes, that means that someone has to write it in C++. And is someone going to do that?
There's a caveat here too, though, which is that if you're working in Python or Go, you frequently are pulling in third-party libraries that there may not be an equivalent to in C++.
Yeah.
So if it's, sort of just mechanics, right? If you're like, oh yeah, take this data that's easily accessible and like mechanic it into this other form, then yeah, that's an easy conversion, right? But if you, once you start pulling in third-party libraries, like if you wrote a Go thing that used the if you wrote a Go program or extension that used the Google attestation Go library, porting that to C++ would be very hard.
Okay.
Great point.
And I think to extend that even further, right? If you write a command line proof of concept, getting help porting that into Osquery is also very easy, right? If you can be like, I made a program, if you just run it under sudo, it spits out the information, right? That's like the meat right there. So figuring out how to shim that in, like we can point you at some things.
Okay.
Anyone want to talk about anything else? Should we just end this about 20 minutes early?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that lib archive PR that CI is running, and hopefully it's going to pass, and then that'll get merged, or I will merge it.
Cool.
Great. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you all.
Thank you all
Thanks.
for
Bye.
being here. Thank you for your work and your interest. And I'll see some of you in 2 weeks.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm
Alrighty.
stopping the recording now.
Bye.